Once I discovered investigative reporting, nothing else mattered to me. It's one of the most important things in the world, holding those in power accountable. You get to expose the bastards, whoever they are and whatever they've done. Investigative journalists have been on the front lines of history, watching and checking those in power, all in the pursuit of truth.
I think we've got a much more serious situation now in communist infiltration of the CIA.
They've uncovered political corruption, corporate malfeasance, and other abuses of power that permeate throughout our society.
It's very simple. The first casualty in every war is the truth.
Because if you don't understand what your duty is as an observer and as a reporter, then you could be an accomplice.
But I think when you set out to be a journalist, you should seek the truth wherever it leads you. Let the chips fall where they may.
For more than a decade, I've been interviewing investigative journalists who have covered the most important events of the last 60 years. It's important to understand how truth-telling is done. It's a beacon of light in what is mostly a dark world.
Everything was strictly segregated. Not just schools that people talk about a lot, but everything.
We were called a variety of things. We were the Freedom Riders.
By the time we got to the outside of the city, the tires went down and the bus had to stop. I was along about the middle of the bus. They eventually broke out a window just behind me, and that's where they threw this firebomb. And suddenly smoke was all over the place, the darkest smoke you ever saw. It was one of the more horrible scenes you would see. Just to think that fellow Americans were doing that to other Americans.
Basically, My Lai took place in a village, and there had been a CIA report that there was going to be a company of North Vietnamese regulars. We were fighting a guerrilla war against an enemy that was not wearing uniform. What happened that night at division headquarters, they talked about this victory. Here's how they reported it, that they killed 128 VC, 3 weapons captured. The My Lai was a front page story in the New York Times a day or two later as a great victory. 555 is probably the best number. Men, women, and children in this village, and they kill them all. 99%, 95% of them. Put them in ditches and shoot.
This work is not for the faint of heart. You have to be willing to investigate deeply for a long period of time. It's heavy lifting research and reporting. But underneath it all, the truth can be found.
We both, from early on, I think, came to distrust secrecy.
I didn't choose Woodward and Bernstein. The fact that it was Saturday chose Woodward and Bernstein. New kids come in on the weekend.
Phone rang. City editor, can you come in? There's been this burglary at the Democratic headquarters in the Watergate building. 5 burglars in business suits, didn't make sense. And finally the judge said, where have you previously worked? And then he went, CIA. And I was in the front row. And that's when I said, holy shit.
There was a lot of activity around the city desk when I came in that morning. So I wanted to get on the story.
On the front page, we can't make any heads or tails of this at this point.
Once we got going, and the story just moved so fast, within a couple of weeks we knew where the money came in. And once it got into the White House, my God, you didn't know how far it was going, but it wasn't a 2-bit burglary anymore.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford.
And one of my things I say all the time, and strong feelings about this, is Watergate's never over. That the echoes of it just kind of march through contemporary history.
I came to Washington, D.C. as a young reporter in the wake of the Watergate scandal, and I've been an investigative journalist ever since. I worked as a producer for ABC News and CBS News 60 Minutes before founding the Center for Public Integrity, one of the first nonprofit investigative journalism organizations in the U.S. Now, as a professor, I teach the next generation of journalists. It's more important now than ever. In my 40 years of holding those in power accountable, I'm seeing hostilities towards the press grow increasingly worse.
As you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth.
You're seeing some idiots in the press, and they're misrepresenting your exchange.
The dishonesty that often takes place by the news media.
This is not a threat just to an industry, but to the public's right to information. Our founding fathers recognized the need for freedom of the press in order to hold those in power accountable.
We are not about to send American boys 9,000 or 10,000 miles away from home to do what Asian boys ought to be doing for themselves.
You deserve the truth. A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true, but the facts and the evidence tell me it is not.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
I take the fact that he develops weapons of mass destruction very seriously.
I looked over that sea of people and I said to myself, wow. When I looked at the numbers that happened to come in from all of the various sources, we had the biggest audience in the history of inaugural speeches.
Journalists must now grapple with the notion of fake news, which sows confusion amongst the public and ultimately distrust of the media, facts, and truth itself.
And Wolf, just to give you a sense as to what's happening right now, you can hear there is a chorus of boos and other chants from this Trump crowd here in Tampa, Florida. They're saying things like CNN sucks, go home, and fake news. We're staying right here. We're going to do our job and report on this rally to all of our viewers here tonight.
This is where we are now, our current moment of truth. To safeguard our future and prevent these abuses from continuing, we must look at how investigative journalists uncover truth, expose abuses of power, and in the process, preserve our freedoms and our democracy.
The real fact is history's never over.
That's how the world changes. Enough people decide, change their minds about what reality is.
If you look at the great reporting of the past, everybody, by and large, everybody had a sense of mission, had a sense of wanting to tell the truth. Ordinary people who chose to do extraordinary things with extraordinary impact.